elections in terms of the results and also analysis of the developments around the electoral processes. My name is Justin Mahlahla. We are continuing our discussions with our panelists who are here in the studio. I have political analysts in the form of Dr. Leopold Chakanyuka. Welcome back, Doctor. And I also have Mr. Elton Ziki. Welcome back, Mr. Ziki.
Thank you.
So earlier in the day, we were discussing issues particularly to do with the presentations made by the various observer missions that are in the country to observe and monitor the elections that took place on the 23rd, that also, as you understand, spilled into the 24th of August 2023. And in particular, we're looking at issues that were raised by the SADC chair of the chair rather of the SADC observer mission, that's Dr. Nevas Mumba, and we were analyzing those issues, but we don't want to dwell much on what issues were raised. I just want us to actually perhaps conclude our analysis on that, Mr. Ziki. And my question to you before we move on is, to what extent should we rely or should we actually set our own processes on the presentations made by foreign observer missions to our elections?
Thank you, Justin. I think what is essential is that we must never underestimate and also appreciate the importance of election observer mission reports in their various formats, the preliminary and the comprehensive reports, which will be due in 60 days or so for the missions. But what I would want to say and point out is that it is important to be able to differentiate the substance contained in a report, because what you want to look at are the indicators that determine whether if an election is free, fair and credible. And it seems that most of these election observer mission preliminary reports have decided to scuttle around the issues of the credibility of the elections by not stating that position. And of course, others would argue that that is why it is a preliminary statement, and that can still be covered in a comprehensive report that will then come out. But what is important is the country holding elections adhering to its own dictates, on laws, on tenets of the Constitution. Okay. So in a democracy, it's a requirement and a requisite that the observation process must be conducted, and independent, impartial observers that are non-aligned can then present their findings. We also want to dwell on what exactly the election observer mission must be looking at. That ultimately, at the end of the day, determine the veracity of the election in terms of the credibility. Is the institution or the institutions that are conducting the elections in a particular country following the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution? To what extent is that institution also adhering to the electoral law or electoral act of the country? And this, we are speaking of the Zimbabwean elections that have been held on the 23rd of August. These are the issues that we want to look at. Are they free from violence? And we go on to classify the levels and degrees of violence, and we talk of various issues that entail violence. But observing the elections that were conducted by Zimbabweans, they've been one of the most peaceful. I think in Africa already we must give and applaud the institutions that were part of the process of conducting and managing the affairs of the elections in 2023. And having said that, when we are looking at the peaceful nature of the conduct of the elections, the organizational fluidity of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, we note, yes, without bias, that there were areas where the flow was not that as such as expected. But these are administrative issues.
I now want Dr. Chakanyuka perhaps to touch on those issues. You have said, yes, we depend on the reports and so forth, because they highlight a number of important issues that should be addressed. And I want Dr. Chaganyuka to perhaps talk about the good that came out of this election and what important lessons can be learned by Zimbabweans, by the region, and any other player in terms of what good came out of the August 23 general election.
Yeah, I think, you know what, this issue of observers has actually made us fail to appreciate our processes, or to make an analysis of our own processes as we watched it as Zimbabweans. And in so doing, we seem to have failed to appreciate ourselves for having been able to conduct a very peaceful election. The election was free from violence. The election was free from intimidation. We saw people, of course, there were delays that happened, and people were able to vote freely. There was that particular extension. We actually were failing to see all those things as we are focusing on the observer, but we have been able to do well for ourselves as Zimbabweans. And I'm sure the majority of Zimbabweans right now, they are proud of themselves because of the manner in which we have been able to conduct our elections. The elections, as it seems, they are quite acceptable to the general Zimbabweans. We had a very peaceful election. When we talk about the issue of administration, of course, he mentioned the issues of those particular delays, but these were expected given the circumstances that we were in, the issues of the court cases and so forth, which made these delays possible. These were something that, of course, we didn't expect it, but had to happen due to the processes that actually had to happen. But generally, I would say ZEC was able to conduct a very, election that was quite acceptable, and they did pretty well. And in terms of even their management with the media and information dissemination, I think ZEC this time did pretty well. If you had noticed, or if you were following their social media platforms and so forth, they were able to deliver information right at the time. People were given correct information. I haven't even heard of any journalist or any media house that would say, well, we were not given attention by ZEC.
Okay.
They made it a point that they were available to the media.
And they were also accessible.
Yes, they were very accessible. We as electorates were able to engage with them on various social media. So I think these are some of the, good that came out of this particular election. And we were able to do well in that election.
Then let's talk about the issue of administration that actually perhaps is one area that ZEC has been taking the flag in terms of the delays in delivery of the ballot papers and so forth. And yes, one would say, well, it was a mistake by ZEC and they had to correct it by the extension in terms of the voting hours. But do you think this is one area that ZEC also should be perhaps be more vigilant on going forward, looking at the next elections in the next 5 years?
I think what is essential is that the contingency element on the part of ZEC in terms of being responsive to any eventuality that may occur with results to the compensation of the lost time which was caused by the delays of the delivery of the material that were to be used in the voting process. Going forward, of course, ZEC will pay attention to that, because obviously after the election and after it has collated all the results and presented to them. But one thing that I would also want to highlight and touch on is the efficiency with which ZEC is timeously providing the results, and it quells down the unofficial, those that have a propensity for fast fingers typing and typing results that are not verified. So this also is a lesson on the electorate to say in an election, always make sure that the source of your information in terms of the results that you are getting, are they verified, are they official? And that's one area in which the mainstream media has played a very pivotal role in terms of making sure that the nation and the electorate are updated with the correct results. And also, we then applaud the electorate for being peaceful and would like to encourage the peace that
and for being patient as well.
And being patient.
Yeah, I believe if you had noted the previous elections, people would not be able to wait for ZEC to announce results. And I think, here and there we found that on social media platforms, but I believe ZEC has done a very good job of countering false information and sharing the correct information on their platforms and also via ZBC News and other media. Now we are crossing over to the command center where we are getting more from there in terms of the elections.
mwaisabiyani bakulindiswe tuli kumutambulaga tuli nkuko kuno ku National Command Center Harare International Conference Center okonku tuli kumwetela ibwendelezgi bonse ibwande nandene atala amabambe alangene atala azgasaluzge okonku tuli kwamba ikuti mbuli ZBC tuli kumwetela zgonse izili kuchitika ndomba kuti maskwera zvakanaka muri Zimbabwe tichikutenda ikuti muri kuramba muinesu tiri kuno ku National Command Center uko kwatiri kukupai zvose zviri kuitika pamusoro pesarudzo ngabeli chona njani muri Zimbabwe ngiyalamukela njalo ngenjabulo ngithemba ukuthi liqhubekela phambili lilathi sikhonapha namhlanje ke siqhubekela njalo phambili silethulela ke indaba ezilokhe ziqhubekela phambili zisenzakala kwezokhetho sikhangelane lokuthi namhlanje kuke kwaphathwa njalo ipress conference yenhlanganiso ye Pan African Foundation for Socio-Political Convention Network Trust leyo ebikhuluma ngendaba ezichiyeneyo ikakhulu nxa kukhangelwa indaba ezikhangelane lokwethulwa kwezindaba zokhetho kanye lokubona ukuthi izindaba lezi ziyafika kuZulu ngoba lina yile eliqhakathekileyo ukuze phela lenelise ukuba kwazi ukuthi yikuyini okwenzakalayo ngokunjalo i-press conference leyi ikhulume kakhulu ngendaba ezikhangelane lokwethulwa kwembiko ikakhulu zintatheli zindaba ndoka mashoko atiri kukuigira muri Zimbabwe nasi kuti press conference yaitwa muzvara nasi press conference yaitwa nesangano rePan African Foundation for Socio-Political Convention Network Trust iyo yanga ichitaura pamusoro pekuwanikwa kwenhau dzinechekuita nezvesarudzo kubva musi wadzakatanga kusvika pari zvino inhau dzatiri kukuunzirai isusu seZBC kuti mugone kuziva zviri kuitika tichitaura nevanhu vakakosha vanhu vari kutarisana nezvakakosha zviri kuitika paZimbabwe Electoral Commission tichiyeuka kuti nezuro takataura zvakare nemukuru anova iye Chief Elections Officer veZimbabwe Electoral Commission vaOtlwile Slaigwana vakataura pano pamusoro pemafambisirwo anoitwa nyaya dzekuti tizosvika pakubuda kwemaresults esarudzo vakatsanangura mafambisirwo kana ndikati masteps anotorwa neZimbabwe Electoral Commission kunosvika zvikuru sei vachitsanangura maresults kubuda kwawo emutungamiri wenyika vachipa nano nenano kuti kubva apa tinoenda apa kubva apa vanozodai vozodai kusvikira panosvika pabuda maresults iwayo silokeke silethulela sikhangela ukuthi njengeZBC tina kumele silipe amazwi aqhakathekileyo kumele sikhangela ukuthi izolo sike saba lesiphathamandla ke seZimbabwe Electoral Commission lo obechasisa ngendaba zokuthi kuthathwa amanyathelo bani ukuze siyefika ngesikhathi sokuthi impumela zokhetho zibe ngeziphumayo wachasisa impumela zonke zamakhansila wachasisa impumela zama National Assembly wachasisa njalo impumela ezikhangelane ke lempumela zikamongameli ukuthi kusukwa ngapi kuze kuyefikwa ngapi ukuthi ke impumela zona lezo ziphume wathembisa njalo ubaba uSlaigwana ukuthi insuku ezibekiwe zokuphuma kwempumela zikamongameli bazazibamba njalo baza kwethula lezo mpumela phakathi kwensuku zona lezo esitsho njalo egcizelela ukuthi phakathi kwensuku ezinhlanu kusukusela ngesikhathi sokuvalwa ukokhetho insuku ezinhlanu yikho lapho okumele kuphume khona ukhetho ugcizelele kakhulu ngalolo daba wagcizelela njalo esikhangelane ngendaba zokuvikeleka kwendawo lapho okuqhutshwa khona indaba zokubalwa kwamavoti wona lawa esingathi i-National Command Center lapho ke obekubikwa ukuthi abantu sebetshelana ukuthi kakusahambeki sokunjani kodwa ke ugcizelele yena wathi ungumsebenzi wamapholisa ukubona ukuthi lindawo ivikelekile kodwa ke wachasisa ukuthi wonke umuntu ole accreditation ye Zimbabwe Electoral Commission ukhululekile ukuthi afike kuyona le indawo labo abancintisayo ama presidential candidates bakhululekile njalo ukufika kuyona le indawo bengela kuhlutshwa bekungela lutho olukhathazayo abantu bakhululekile kuphela nxa ule accreditation yakho uyenelisa ukufika ke kuyona le indawo National Command Center. Yizo ke indaba esikhulume ngazo ke izolo sikhangela njalo ukuthi umsakazo ke we-ZBC ngumsakazo olelethela impumela olilethela imbiko eqhakathekileyo. Sikhangele ukuthi intatheli izindaba zona ze-ZBC zikhona ke ezabelweni zonke zelizwe. Vatori venawo ve-ZBC variko kumathunu ose enyika vanga variko zvekare kuma polling station ikoko vachiti unzira zviri kuitira kuti isusu tigare tichiziva semhuri yeZimbabwe tigare tichiziva zviri kuitika ikoko kuma polling stations. Kana takatarisa dhorobha reHarare vatori venhau veZBC vanga varifararira kubulawayo vanga variko zvakare Matabeleland North tangatine vatori venhau veZBC vanosanganisira Ivo Tichi Kureva pamwe chete naMhlomuli Ncube nabatsira ishoko variko ikoko vachitiunzira zvinoitika. Matabeleland South Maranelli Providence Maranelli anga ariko Aifeli Mudau variko vachitiunzira zvanga zvichiitika ikoko kusanganisira vachiunza nemitauro inonzwikwa kuvanhu mitauro inotaurwa kunzvimbo idzodzo kuitira kuti pasavana munhu asina kunzwa kuti chichaitika. Ndoka basa redu se-ZBC tichiunzirai mashoko anenge akakosha panguva iyoyo zvikuru sei takatarisana nesarudzo takatarisa zvakare kuGweru kuMidlands tanga tinavo vatori venhau veZBC vachitiunzira zvakare kumasvingo vanga variko Game Tambo pamwe chete naMesibofu vachitiunzira zvanga zvichiitika kudunhu iroro. Sikhangela njalo ukuthi esabelweni ke seMashonaland Central utapiwa machemedze ubekhona la ekhona ngale esethulela indaba ezichiyeneyo. Sikhangele ukuthi ke kuyaqhubekela phambili size sifike ke ngesikhathi lapho uhlelo lolu oluzaphethwa ngalo. Siyabe silokhe siqhubekela phambili silethulela njalo. Lingakhohlwa ke muli yeZimbabwe ukuthi kuma studios ethu Our Pockets Hill sikhona njalo sikhuluma ke lengcithi esingathi ngama analyst abakwazi ukucubungula abakwazi ukukhangela isimo besilinganisa bebona ukuthi kuyini okwenzakalayo kuyini okungayenzakala. Sixoxa labo sichasisela ukuthi njengemuli yeZimbabwe sizwe ke sazi ukuthi kuyini okwenzakalayo. Bombo yeZimbabwe mbeli kuphandulula ukuthi sikaphephele wa-ZBC ulamwethela ziyonse izili kuchitika kumasena ande nemukati ikanyika ya Zimbabwe kamphathila kathulangene athala amabambe asaluzyo aya tuli kumwethela ziyonse basimuthola thombo iba ZBC balizwide konse ikuyosika muchindi awo nitutaka tegwa imabambe aya amana abobo iZimbabwe Electoral Commission yo njinjo itakathubuzge kuti nesuno twagolera ano twamunzivisya ezi azezi iswechesu nkumupa ikuti muzibe ikuti ninzi ichili kuchitika mpali emputu yabwenda abobo gatupa imwenya iwakuti gabali kwambula mpawawa ikuchitira kuti tuzimvwisisiske alimwi gatuyandula abo ibajesi ibusongo ibwakuphandulula ibusongo ibwakuti tumvwisisiske mugati iganzira injiyeyo isiyenesiyene ikuchitira ikuti zgonse zibeka zigenda igabotu tichienderera mberi tichange tichiri kuenderera mberi kusvikira musi uchanzi nasi ndipo patagumira apo patichaziviswa neZimbabwe Electoral Commission kuti urongwa hose waperera pano. ZBC inenge inemi tichienderera mberi tichikupakurirai izvo zvatinenge tava nazvo kunjalo ke muli yeZimbabwe okwamanje ke angihambi ngedwa lihlala likwazi ngilofara ikwaze elaye echasisa okunye okukhona. Over to you Farai.
Thank you so much there to Lucy Ngosolo, who is on the upper deck here at the Harare International Conference Center. Currently in the main foyer to the main auditorium, where we're looking forward to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission being able to announce the results that have come in with regards to the National Assembly representation. And of course, all collation having taken place at various polling stations in and around all 10 provinces in Zimbabwe having come to an end. And the most integral part, of course, being the National Command Center, where the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission currently is in the nation's capital, being able to at least gather all that information and be able to disseminate it during the course of the day. According to the breakdown so far we've received, we have 127 seats allocated to ZANU PF for National Assembly and 27 seats to the Triple C as the opposition party. We still are waiting for more collated results from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to be announced. And of course, the official announcements would be taking place during the course of the day right here from the nation's capital. And of course, appreciating our various correspondents in and around the country, we've managed to be able to bring you all the updates during the course of our electoral programming happening for the 2023 general elections. Of course, a few challenges that had been highlighted by various observer missions during the course of the past 2 days, most notably, of course, by SADC and the AU here at the Harare International Conference Center. But also we had local observers earlier on this morning also expressing their pleasement to the developments that have taken place, with a peaceful, tranquil environment being highlighted as a core appreciation for some of the steps that have been made by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. As is the case, of course, with the various observations that have been made, reports would be finalized upon the commencement of the electoral process. That commencement, of course, falling within the 5-day period which began on the 23rd of August. It is upon then which we look forward to not only the final results for the National Assembly being announced, but also those of the presidential elect would also then extend further from there with the collated results that had been brought forward. Then also, of course, encouraging all those of you to take advantage of all our social media platforms. That's a ZBC News Online. Feel free to keep sending us more of your questions, your comments, and your contributions, as we thoroughly do appreciate. We are rather inundated with quite a lot of contributions that we have been receiving from the general public, but most importantly, appreciating the significance of the peaceful environment that has been created during the course of these general elections. And as I highlighted earlier on, we still are in the foyer of the main auditorium, where we look forward to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission Chief Electorate being able to at least give out the rest of the National Assembly results. And then when those results do come out, that would be the end of the National Assembly representatives, and then of course extending to the final collation of the presidential results. Well, that's it from us right here for now at the Harare International Conference Center. We will make sure that we do give you more updates as our electoral programming progresses. We'll now cross over back to our Pockets Hill studios.
Many thanks there to Farai and Lucy for that update from the command center. Of course, the nation waiting with bated breath for the continued announcement of the results, and of course later on the presidential results, which will be announced in due course by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, the mandated body that is the task of announcing those results. We continue our discussion here with political analyst Dr. Leopold Chanyuka as well as Mr. Elton Zik. Now, Doctor, you were looking at the good that Zimbabweans can actually learn from this election, the positives that came out of this election, and perhaps areas that need improvement. One other issue is to do with the participation of women, where according also to the preliminary reports, there was that observation, and even before, the observation that only about 11% of the contestants were female. What can be done to encourage and also to create opportunities for more women and perhaps for more youths to ensure inclusive participation in the political processes of the country?
Yeah, I think the issue of women participation is one issue that even we ourselves, we have always been continuously discussing. and trying to find ways of making sure that we encourage more women to participate into politics. That is why we saw that extension of the 60 seats for women, so that we cover up for those particular numbers of women who are not participating directly in elections. So already we have the 60 seats that are reserved for women, but that is not enough, because when you look at our population, you have 52% of the population are women, and which means these are also the majority of our voters. They are women. But when it comes to standing up in positions of elected offices, they seem to be lagging behind. So we, moving forward, we need to come up with quite a lot of programs to encourage more and more women to participate. Even the women who are now going to be in parliament, and those who are head of a number of various state institutions, they should act as role models for the younger women to realize that it is possible for a woman to take up a leadership position. The women who are going into parliament should also continue to push for policies that target women participation in leadership position. And some of the factors that also limit women participation are to do with our own cultures. The manner in which we have treated politics and we have treated our women. Even when you go at home, women tend to be looked at as if they are, they can't have a voice of their own. So culturally, even bring in churches and so forth, we need to deal with the cultural issues that limit the participation of women. Issues also to do with political violence. In the past, perhaps we might have noticed that in certain political parties, women were ill-treated, emotionally abused. So those particular factors, they tend to be discouraging to other young women who want to get into politics. So therefore, our institutions moving forward must be strengthened and also make sure that we all in all support women to engage in politics.
Let's look at the issue of youths, Mr. Ziki. When you look at the youth demographic dividend in terms of their participation in this plebiscite that we are discussing, would you say there was a good representation of the youths?
I think your question is progressional in approach in terms of having acceptance of the standard norm. Having presented the election as a clear example that you so seek that we identify and agree to ourselves that young people are participating in the acceptable levels and numbers. You would want to see that from 2018 up to now, we still need to give that process the due time in terms of the levels. But in 2023, as compared to 2018, you would want to see that there's an increase in terms of the number of young people that have participated in this plebiscite. But however, you also want to see a deliberate approach in terms of policy at policy level by government to accept that the youth quota must be respected and must be enforced in the way youth participation occurs within the political, social, and even economic spheres. So there is a progression that young people will incrementally be more visible in terms of participating in the political landscape of the country. But you'd also want to pay attention to the fact that young people as well, there is an increased awareness in civic issues and participation that is continuously going on. And the young people should also agree to the fact that their inclusion within the governance system of their country is something that they must always give it as a priority and participate in, so that it is not delivered on a silver platter by virtue of your age, to say I deserve this because of my age, but because of merit as well. So these are the compounding issues that we must then also amalgamate in our appreciation of the issues that affect not only youths but even women, as Dr. Chakanyuka was highlighting, that there are a number of issues, myriad a plethora of issues that affect the participation of women from the cultural norms of upbringing and the patriarchal structure of our societies. So these are issues that we are confronting as a nation, as people, to also begin to think about diversification towards those areas, to believe that even our young people have a role to play within the formative processes of a Zimbabwe that we want.
Okay. Now, Doctor, we are expecting perhaps the announcement of the final batch of results and getting into the announcement perhaps of the presidential results within these days or within these hours, who knows. But let's look at the electorate. What is expected of them from now going forward?
Yeah, before I answer a question, I just want to add something on the issue of youth participation. Because, we all agree or say that the young people are the future of our country.
Certainly.
So therefore, for them to be a future that understands where we are coming from, where we are going, they need to be involved. But I'm also happy because we have the 10 seats already that have been, which is a deliberate policy to make sure that we have young people that participate. And different political parties, right now, if you look at the number of young people who have contested, I was looking at one point, we're hearing from ZANU-PF where they were saying they've about 40 members of their youth league that actually participated in these elections, which is, a very good number when you look at it. Even CCC also had a sizable number of young people that have participated, which I think it's a very important step that political parties are now taking to bring in the young people to get involved into politics. So we have to commend them for that. Then coming to your question of what we are supposed to be doing, I think is the issue is we need to realize that election, as we have said before, is about the people. We are giving the people the right to decide on whom they want to be their leader. Of course, we have different opinions, and sometimes we have different candidates that we had preferred. But sometimes the other people might not have shared that same ideology or thinking as we could have been sharing. So losing in an election does not necessarily mean that you are a less important Zimbabwean. What we need to do is whatever you had in mind to push the agenda of our country or to the development of our country forward, let's bring that together. And we continue to work together as a country, whether you might have lost, but still you remain a Zimbabwean, that we believe that you have a role to play in the building of our country. So bring that and continue to build the country. For those who would have won, they also need to realize that the people of Zimbabwe would have trusted their future in you. And therefore, you must never disappoint the people and be a unifier. Try by all means to bring even those who they have lost in this election, bring them together, work with them so that we develop the one Zimbabwe that we have. Remembering
that Zimbabwe is working towards achieving an upper middle income economy by 2030, and that's the Vision 2030, an inclusive development agenda that the nation is pursuing. At this juncture, we are crossing over to our Montrose studios where Dora Ngube is on standby for more.
Thank you so much, Justin. Good afternoon to you and a lovely afternoon to our viewers. Many thanks to you there at Pocketshill and the guests that have been helping us understand more about the electoral process. And it's day 4 after the official voting day, and we are still receiving results of the elections, which were the presidential, National Assembly and local authority selections. And so we are receiving the results from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which is the only body that can announce results, and therefore as they announce them, we here at ZBC TV give you that opportunity to listen to them as they announce. But well, in the meantime, before we receive more results, I have in the studio Nikiwe Ngube Chabalala, who is a legal practitioner, to help us also understand a bit more on the electoral process. Good afternoon, Nikiwe. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Zimbabwe.
So we've received, I'm sure, most of the results so far, more than 50% rather. What is your personal assessment of the results so far?
Well, we are seeing the outcome of what the electorate want to see for their country. We have seen 196 constituencies being announced, and ZANU-PF getting 126 and Triple C getting 70, they being the official results so far. So it's really good that the results are coming in good time, and we hope that we are going to stick to timelines within which we expect the announcement of all the results.
And your comment on the rural and urban results, outcomes?
Yes, rural and urban outcomes, it's been a mixed bag, so to speak. We have seen in some constituencies the ZANU-PF winning, in some constituencies the other political parties, the Triple C winning, and well, it's a lot of factors at play there. You never know which one exactly. But there are constituencies where you expected a certain party to win and they did not. And there are constituencies where you expected the other party to win and they did not. Really, it's a lot of changes happening there on the ground.
Okay, let's talk about Bulawayo.
Yeah.
Specifically Bulawayo, where the opposition won all the seats.
Yes.
Do you think people were voting based on merit for their candidates, or it was just party jackets?
Unfortunately, as a country, we still vote for candidates based on party jackets, which is really quite disturbing, because it doesn't necessarily mean you are getting the quality of the leader that you want from that particular jacket that people tend to be voting for. So yes, people are voting on party jackets, because you will find that in Bulawayo, like you're saying, it's a straight win for Triple C, for example. And you're saying, is it about all the candidates, we see them credible to be in those positions? I don't think it's necessarily so. We are just voting for a certain party because we believe in the party credentials, maybe, as opposed to the credentials of an individual.
And what impact does that have? What negative or positive impacts does that have?
Yeah, it does have that negative impact, like I'm saying, to say it doesn't necessarily mean all the 12 candidates have got the same leadership credentials that we want to see in the leadership going forward. So it's all about, we want to see this party yet than the individual that would have got in on party lines.
And what do you think causes that? Is it lack of voter education, or we are just not yet sure of what we really want in a leader? What exactly is the problem?
I think we lack that quality political maturity. Allow me to say that. We lack that political maturity to say it's all about what an individual can offer as opposed to a party. We still go for the group. It's still a numbers game. What are the people saying? What are the masses saying? So you go with the wave. Okay, we are voting for this party, not necessarily what this individual is capable of doing. So we need to move from that level to an extent where we can say, even if this person was to stand as an independent candidate, we trust what they can offer or what they can deliver for us as a leader in this particular constituency, as opposed to them wearing a certain party jacket. So we need to move to that level.
Yeah. As we're talking about the quality of the leader, I did mention as we were chit-chatting just before this interview that it's amazing how someone would want to be a president overnight, and yet they've never really taken a position that is much lower, or yet at least even a councillor, and lived with the community and worked with the community to an extent. What can you say about such leadership?
Yeah, I think we need to go back to the drawing board for most of the candidates. From what we have seen in these elections, it's not all about my name just being mentioned by ZEC, that I've gone through the nomination code, I'm representing this party and this particular post, right? It's all about the work being done. Let's start from the grassroots, right? You want to be a leader. What are you offering us? What is it that Zimbabwe want to see? What is it that your particular your constituency or your area of expertise, what is it that you want to bring to us as a nation? We need to move this country forward. This country needs to develop. There's so much work to be done. Do you possess those skills? Do you have that know-how? Do you understand what your people need on the ground? Service provision, all it takes to administer. Do you have those disciplines? If not, then don't waste our time, right? But you see, you find I don't know what the hype was. You find a certain party is represented at presidential level. You know, some parties did not, on the ground, they did not even have polling agents. You don't have a polling agent to see if processes are being followed from grassroots, but you are seen at the apex. Really, is it necessary?
Yeah,
Is that what we want to see in our country? We need that political maturity in Zimbabwe. I think it's high time we really scale up what we offer to the electorate.
Yeah, true that, because definitely you can't want to start up there and
yes, where the foundations are faulty. Let's start at the basement, at the foundations. Start by being a councillor. Let's see what you can offer at local level, and then you go to national level and you will see what you can offer. Then you can then aspire to be the president of the country from there.
And this also brings us to the kind of candidates that, for example, we've seen some that had set up boreholes, and then when they've lost, they lock them.
Exactly my point. This is what it then leads to.
Yeah.
Because you are not doing it for the people. You are doing it for the seen part, to be seen to be doing something.
Yes.
Are you drilling that borehole wholeheartedly for the people?
Community, yeah.
Then if you're doing it for the people, for the community, you are selfless. You are able to give it out or give it away to the community for the benefit of the community. But then if you wake up, then there's a padlock on the borehole, then it shows us a lot. You lack that maturity to be selfless, and therefore you cannot lead, and you cannot be seen to be campaigning and saying, here I am, vote for me. What happens to the children when you are looking that borehole? They have nothing to do with voting processes. What are you saying about them? Really, it doesn't sit down well when it comes to those.
True that. If really your motive is about the community,
if you're nation driven, if it's about the community that you want to serve, if it's about service, then serve wholeheartedly, selflessly. You are able even to see your own enemy drinking from that water and benefiting.
And then what can you say about the other opposition parties generally that were taking part in the election generally?
Well, some of the political parties, I don't think really they are taking the electorate seriously. You find there's a political party that has collected their dues from the treasury, fair and fine, but then last minute you pull out of an election and you pull out for a certain post, for the top post, and then you leave the other post. And you ask yourself, okay, what's the criteria here that you are using for you to pull out from a certain post, but you are leaving the rest? Really, it lacks logic. You defy logic, and at the end of the day, from a layman point of view, you're saying, are you really serious about the electorate? Are you really serious about participating in this whole process? Remember, we're choosing leadership that we want to see, that will push Zimbabwe forward, right? Push the agenda of Zimbabwe forward. So really, if you're pulling out last minute, 11th hour, what are you saying about the people that have been following you all this time? Really?
Just before we close, just a brief word or caution to the Zimbabweans as we await the results, especially about the use of social media, just briefly.
Right, use of social media can be so damaging. If you spread false results, you don't follow allow the processes to go through. We have heard of certain offices being barricaded, being under protection and all, and then later on it turns out it's not the correct position. Really, you instill unnecessary fear if you use social media in an unworthy manner, so to speak. It's really not necessary, and it's uncalled for. Zimbabwe is a peaceful nation. We've got children, we've got women, we've got vulnerable groups who all want to be free and be peaceful and carry out our duties peacefully. It's unnecessary to be receiving this disturbing news from unreliable sources. Really, we need to be careful because news spreads so fast. These social media channels, they spread news so fast, and it's very difficult to control. By the time you get correct information, you're not even sure whether that's the correct information. So it calls for discipline from all of us as Zimbabweans.
Yes, so thank you so much, Nigiwe, for coming through. That was Nigiwe Ncube Chabalala, a legal practitioner, and we still encourage us all to maintain the peace as we continue to await more results as they are coming in. And well, for now, I'm taking you back to Pocketsville Studios, and Justin is on standby. Justin, it's back to you.
Thank you once again, Dora, and thank you to our guests today at our Montrose studios as we continue and perhaps get to the end of this discussion this afternoon. Gentlemen, I just want to find out from you your closing remarks in terms of what's the way forward. I know Dr. Chakanyuka spoke about what is expected of the electorate, those who have won these National Assembly elections, and perhaps also those who have lost in these National Assembly elections. We will also perhaps take that cue for those who are going to be winning, the individual who is going to win the presidential election and the individual who is also going to lose the presidential elections. Now I want to hear from you, Mr. Ziki. What is expected of us, the voters, the electorate, going forward in your concluding remarks?
The first thing that we must pay attention to in terms of expectations of the electorate once you have cast your vote as prescribed within the various statutes of the law in terms of the Electoral Act, is obviously to go to your place of abode and relax patiently, as you have always done over the past 5 years, to come and decide who you are going to give the mandate for the next 5 years. And also be patient, as well as making sure that the sources of information that are going to be bringing out the results must be verified. So I encourage the electorate all over the country to make sure that we are receiving results from the official verifiable channels. And once the results have also been announced and the winners have been proclaimed or declared from the Presidential House of Assembly and the local authorities, there is this element, of course, it's discretional, but I would also encourage the electorate to delay their celebration. If their party has won, if their candidate has won, please delay the celebrations so that we allow for the divergent political opinions and views that did not materialize in triumph to also allow cool down and sink in to say they accept that party X has won or party B has won.
It's very important.
So that discipline and that peace that they've nurtured should continue to be nurtured as we wait for the final results.
Okay, thank you. Doc?
And I want to say to Zimbabweans, so far we have been able to prove that we are capable of conducting free, fair, and credible elections. And so moving forward, let us not allow any elements, either within our country or from outside, to divide us. So far, we have been united and we have spoken with one voice. We have, done this, in a very peaceful environment, and let us not allow outsiders to spoil our environment. Because if we destroy this country, it is us again who are going to cry. So let's remain resolute, united in building our country and working for our country.
Those are the words from our two political analysts, Mr. Elton Ziki as well as Dr. Leopold Chakanyuka, encouraging Zimbabweans, encouraging the electorate as well as those political players who are participating in the August 23 general elections to remain calm, to remain united as well as peaceful. The environment has already been peaceful and the call is for more peace to prevail even after the announcement of the results. We'll continue to give you updates from here, our Pocket Hill studios as well as our Montrose studios and the command center of the August 23 plebiscite as they do come from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Otherwise, we want to appreciate your support and also keep those comments coming through on our social media platform on ZBC News Online. We appreciate the comments that you are sending through, and also from wherever you're watching us, we want to appreciate your support. And those watching on our Twitter page, YouTube page, ZBC News Online, thank you so much for being with us. We'll be back with more in due course. Stay tuned to ZBC TV.
Songa